Well, welcome to week 4, the final week of our Lent series. Even though your Lent prayer cards will work all the way through to Easter, so don't say, thank God I can stop praying. No, you've got a couple more weeks of doing that. That was a joke, by the way, somewhat. It's also true. I don't want you to stop praying between now and then, but everybody looked very stoic right there. So let's, laugh. When I say joke, you laugh, okay? We are about to finish this up, and we're going to go into our Easter series. This is our slide for our Easter series, and it'll be a great time, like we said at the beginning, to invite people to come here. I love that season of time around Easter. Your board members or people who volunteer and help out a lot here will say it's probably their favorite time and the time that they're most afraid of. There's so much happening. And we have the same thing going on right now, right? We've got the extravaganza, Easter Sunday, Grace Kids having their full launch. So, bring whoever you can for that April 17th, that Easter Sunday. It's going to be so exciting. Before we jump into today's message, can we just give a round of applause and thanks to what God did through our worship team and Ken Palmer this last Sunday? Can we give thanks to that? Yeah? I'm so thankful for you guys. Thank you. Thank you for being open. Thank you. You guys are just such good friends to partner and to speak as you did. I got to watch it last week, and I was just thinking, man, what is God doing through our church? Some really exciting, amazing movements. I mean, those truths that Ken preached about, I want to go back through some of those. But before I do that, whenever we talk, like we've been talking through this series and what Ken talked about last week and we're going to talk about today, I just keep thinking we're going to look back on these days when there was just 50 or so of us and be like, wow, I can't believe what God did with just a handful of us. I mean, as we grow, we're going to look back on these days and say it was so much simpler then. And I hope you're praying for that. I hope you're praying that these movements are not just something that makes us feel good, but something that grows and expands who we are as people, who we are as a loving community. Amazing. So as we finish up this series today, the key word is in the name. It's relent. Let go. Be open. Full stop. And that's the problem, right? Is the undergirding theme with this whole series is that we do not relent. We do not stop. We do not let go. And the problem is that we can. And somewhere along the way, we have believed a lie. We've believed a lie that the way things are the way that they always will be in some way, shape, or form. The way we are is the way we will always be in some way, shape, or form. And no matter what we do, it'll just be some variation of that. And the gospel tells us something completely different, that we can be transformed, resurrected, right? Whatever was before can not just be hidden, but dead completely. I mean, I need that kind of supernatural hope in my life, that who I was is not who I always have to be. And the way things are do not always have to stay in these kind of dead-end rhythms. Instead, new life can happen in me and through me and around me. Amen to anybody, right? Is that resonating with anybody? Why do we do this here if we're not expecting for God to bring something new, something alive, to change what was there before? And the problem is that so many people, some of us here today, it might not even be some of us here today, but we have this tendency to go into survival mode, that we've got responsibilities and jobs and families and all kinds of things, and it's so easy to get into survival mode. And when we're surviving and just trying to keep what we already have alive and sustained, there is no letting go. There is no relenting. There is no sacrifice in that way. We're trying to protect what we have and trying to keep it how it is. And that's what we want to fight against as we talk through today, where one thing can stop and another thing, what God has in mind, can begin. Ken, you had some amazing insights, I thought, last week, and I wanted to remind us of some of those today. I will say, man, you had so many great wisdoms of truth. I think we're about ready to release a book, man. I mean, I think we're on the verge. You didn't ask me to do this, but I thought I made a title book already for you. I thought that this would be great. It's Sassy, Tatted, and Holy by Ken Palmer. I thought that would be just a great book of wisdoms and truths that could go on everybody's nightstand, and it's got a ring to it too. So my percentage is just 10% off the top, right? I'm not sure how God has been speaking to you through this series. I'm not sure how God spoke through you last week with Ken and the worship team, but I'll put a few up here that spoke to me personally as I watched back through that sermon. Here's the first one I loved, right? We do not, as people who are just surviving and just getting by and protecting what we already have, we do not have to defend ourselves. Even more than that, we feel like we got to protect what's here because what is here is right. No, we have got to give up the right to be right, or this fake right that we think that we deserve. And then finally, I love this, right? This question haunts me. Do we want to be right, or do we want to be righteous? There's a difference there, right? That you can sustain and maintain and keep what you already have and have some kind of false sense of, yeah, you're right? Whatever you painted, it's what you have. Or do we want to be righteous? Do we want to be aligned with what God has in mind for us? Most people would say they'd rather be right. Most people, I think, would say, knee-jerk, they want to protect what they already have. And this is where the kingdom of God, Grace Church, has to be different, or we're just another social club. I made fun of the Moose Club last time I referenced kind of what I'm saying right here, and I had so many people come up to me afterwards, hey, I'm a Moose Club member. I'm not mocking the Moose Club, right, or any kind of, I don't know, Chuck E. Cheese, I don't know what club you're a part of. But the church has to be supernaturally different, that we're not a people who must be right all the time. We're not a people who protect what we have. Actually, quite the opposite. We are wide open. We are wide open, allowing God to change and transform and destroy anything that is within us, anything that we're investing in that is not of Him, that is not righteous. And this is the problem with church, is that it's not that complicated. God is incomprehensible, but His core tenets are not that complicated. And we dress it up and we make it so much more complicated than it is. In this series, and what Ken talked about last week, is exactly what everything is all about. If we let go as a people and as a community, do you know what it enables us to begin to do? And we said it already this morning. It enables us to let go of pride, let go of self, and just cling to Jesus. Just cling to God. Just cling to love so that we can love well. I love this verse. We reference it all the time here, I feel like. 1 John 4:8. Anybody who does not love, it's not just you're a mean person, you're not very likable. No, if you do not love, you don't even know God. Because God is love. When we talk about loving well, we're talking about making sure that we know our Creator well, that we've let Him in. And when we don't relent, we do not let Him in. We protect what we have. We want to be right. We want to be safe. We want to survive. And a core tenet of becoming people who can love is that we must let go. We must relent. We must die. We must be open to being destroyed. I dream of this kind of church, and I think if you think about what you came here looking for at Grace, I think that is the kind of church that you dream of too, where we're not defending ourselves all the time and telling everybody else how wrong they are all the time and telling ourselves how much we deserve to be right all the time, making sure we come out on top. Now, the church I dream of is not one that doesn't fight for anything, right? We fight for love instead of fighting for ourselves. We fight for God's plan instead of fighting for our own plan. We do not fight for survival. We fight for love. And you got churches on extremes. You got communities and people on extremes. Church, it's so simple what we must do. To find love, we must open up and let go. And then once we do that, we've got to also be ready to let go of all other preconceived notions. No other plans, no nothing. Just love. I want to ask you this today because when Ken had that one line of, right, do you want to be right or righteous? I was like, you punk, right? Why would you ask me that question? Because it hurts. It hurts my core. Because I want to be right. I really want to be right. I'd like to be right and righteous. Is that so much to ask for? And I think it is. If our foundation is not righteousness and our foundation is survival and wanting to be right and wanting to protect self, we'll never be righteous. So I want to ask you this question. Who do you fight for? Who do you fight for? Do you fight for yourself? Do you fight for your plans and your work and your job and these ideas that you have for you and your life? Or do you fight for love? And if you're fighting for love, as 1 John said, you're fighting for God. We cannot be waging. We're not that that complex of people. We don't have enough multitasking ability to be fighting multiple battles and multiple enemies on multiple fronts. The one thing that we can fight against, and God promises us that we will come out victorious, is our own pride, our own worldly ambitions and temptations. He will offer us a way out and forward and to be like Him. But if you are trying to fight for yourself and for love, if you're trying to fight for the world and for love, you're trying to fight for whatever plan you had, it was going to happen. And for love, it's not going to work. We've got to pick one or the other. We're about to jump into the book of Matthew. If you have a Bible, I'd love for you to get there. We've been there the last 3 weeks. That's kind of cool because we never do that, right? We always are jumping all over the Bible, but we'll be in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, I believe, again today. And if you don't have a Bible, we have some at the back underneath our little offering table, and you can have it for free. I don't care. And Matthew 5, about halfway through your Bibles. I want to camp here still on that question of who do you fight for? Are you guys aware that our small little church has had a gargantuan impact, or at least is about to have a gargantuan impact halfway around the world? About 2 weeks ago, we said, hey, for about $20 or so, we can make little care packages and send it. They're about $20 to send one care package over to Ukraine to help these people who are fleeing their homes, leaving everything behind, and we can't, what can we do? And so our answer, Little Grace Church, we said, okay, we'll give a little bit and we'll send it. You guys, in 2 weeks, we raised over $500. Over 25 of those kits are going over to people. Yeah, thank you, Elaine. Yeah, that's good. That is answering the question, who do we fight for? Now, don't say we're fighting for Ukraine. I mean, there is some way that's kind of like that. But underneath all of that, why do we send that stuff? Why do we want to be a part of that? We are fighting for love. Little Grace Church is going to, not figuratively, we are going to be sending love, affecting people in some supernatural way halfway around the world who you will never meet, you will never know, at least in this lifetime, right? What is that? I mean, that's a miraculous thing. That's a miraculous thing. And the worst part about this is that we shouldn't even have to do this in the first place, right? I mean, we're not sending all kinds of miscellaneous things. Guys, we're sending toothbrushes. We're sending hairbrushes. We're sending stuffed animals. We're sending things to remind these people, not only are they human, but they are loved. And the reason that we even have to do that is because there are people somewhere else who are not fighting for love. They are fighting for themselves. They are fighting to overthrow others, conquer others, put their heel on the throat of others. It's when we don't love, when we want to survive, and survival is never the end of it, right? When we fight for ourselves, it's survival and then trying to also make sure that nobody else can take us down. It eventually always ends into this selfishness that tries to overtake others around us. War does not end until people start fighting for the right things, start fighting for love. This seems like a weird segue, but I don't think it is. This is what our extravaganza is all about. I don't know if you know this. It's not about the eggs. Did you know that? It's not about the candy and the eggs. There are families and kids who will be here on the 9th who, man, if we didn't coerce them with a bouncy slide, I'll coerce some of you. If you're not helping already, you can have as many jumps on the bouncy slide as you want. I don't care. Just please come and help us. But if we did not coerce them with a bouncy slide and free candy, they would not step 1 foot on our campus. So we do this sweet little switch around where we express this love to them, right? We bring them here with candy, and the prayer is that they leave with just a little bit of Jesus, right? They feel a little bit more like, man, those people seem like they loved me. Like it wasn't just, the point is not necessarily to recruit a bunch of people and bring, hey, please come here, right? I mean, we like that. But the underlying core thing of the extravaganza is to love well. To throw a free event for families and kids who maybe this is the first time in the week or the month or the year where they felt loved by a bunch of strangers like us. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. Guys, I hope you're grasping this, that we are fighting, we're fighting for love in Ukraine right now. We're fighting for it in our own community, and you've got to be a part of it. And there really is no excuse. Please sign up before you leave today. There's sign-up things at both ends. If you don't have legs, you don't have arms, we'll have somebody either carry you, or if you don't have arms, you can just smile at a door and say, that way, go that way, right? There's no excuse. If you're having trouble seeing, right, losing some vision, we'll have somebody else standing with you the whole time. The no legs thing, too, registration. You don't have to be standing with that, okay? So there's no excuse. Please be a part of that. April 9th, just for an hour or so, hour or two. Okay, that's enough of my propaganda. Let's jump into Matthew 5. 3 to 4 weeks ago, we talked about Jesus. Comes from a no-name basic town. He's a pretty simple, generic kind of kid, other than there's these weird moments where he goes to the temple and speaks as if he wrote the law, wink, wink. Very weird things, but all in all, a pretty typical kid. And this moment happens, I believe, in Matthew 4, we read through it a couple weeks ago, where he is baptized and his entire life takes a whole different trajectory. His life is now marked with this very specific path that God has in mind for him, a path that is nothing but love, none of his plans, none of his focus, none of his... It is all what the Father God has in mind for him. And he relents. He says, whatever your will is, I will do. He even goes into the wilderness, tempted to see, will Jesus actually pick for himself, or will he choose to live for what God has in mind? And for 40 days, 40 nights, he's tested, and he does not give in, to show us that we can be tempted and tested and not give in. And he denies himself. And when he comes back from the wilderness, where we're about to jump into in Matthew 5, verse 3, I believe. When he comes back from the wilderness, he does not come back and say, man, I was wrong. We need to protect ourselves. We need to survive. The wilderness was horrible. We got every man for themselves. He doesn't say that. He says actually quite the opposite. This guy is tough. 40 days, 40 nights fasting. And he says this. I'm going to be reading from the Message translation, so it might be a little bit different from yours, but I love how it says it. You are blessed when you're at the end of your rope, poor in spirit, because with less of you, there is more of God, more of love, and that sort of rule. Verse 4, you're blessed when you feel like you've lost what is most dear to you, mourning, hurting. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you. Verse 5, you're blessed when you're content with just who you are. No more, no less. That's the moment of meekness that you find yourself proud owners of everything that can't be bought. Verse 6, you're blessed when you've worked up a good appetite for God, for love, hungering and thirsting for righteousness. He is food and drink and the best meal you'll ever eat. Verse 7, you're blessed when you care, merciful, because at the moment of being careful, you find yourselves cared for. You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and heart put right, purity of heart. Because then you can see God, see love in this outside world. You're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight or wage war. Peacemakers, right? That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. You're blessed when your commitment to God provokes even persecution. That persecution drives you even deeper into this loving kingdom. Not only that, count yourselves blessed. Listen to this. Every time people put you down or throw you down or speak lies about you to discredit me, what it means is that the truth is too close for comfort, this need for love, this need to not defend self, and they are becoming uncomfortable. And you can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even. For though they don't like it, I do, and all of heaven applauds. I love this last little phrase here. It says Matthew chapter 5, I believe verse 12. And know that you are in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. We are the most alone, isolated, when we fight and defend ourselves. And I would say this, all these things right here where Jesus says, these open, not, arrogant and proud and strong and mighty people, they're not the ones who are blessed. It is the meek and the soft-spoken, the humble, the ones who allow God to do all the work for them or ahead of them. And so I would argue that if we're prideful and arrogant, protecting self, we're not blessed, we are cursed. We are leading ourselves. There's a lack of love, and so we are kind of in a way our own God. And we all know where that kind of thing leads. I don't know if you feel this way, but at my worst, I am exactly the opposite of what Jesus said right there. I feel like everyone, even God, the world, is all against me. And so I put up walls. I protect myself. I take care of my priorities over everybody else's. I am surviving. But I don't see Jesus saying, blessed are those who protect themselves. I don't see Jesus saying, blessed are those who elevate themselves. I do not see Jesus, and maybe you do, but here in these texts, it seems like Jesus is not saying, blessed are those who make sure that they fight and live and come out on top. It's blessed are the meek and the open and the sweet and the loving and the generous and the humble and the peacemakers. And he says this another time because I've met these Christians, and I bet you have too. I've just met these people that every single conversation, every single opportunity is a fight for them to come out on top. And Jesus has a word for those kind of people. This is in Matthew 26, that those who live by the sword, fighting and attacking anyone and everyone, and they must come out on top, those people who fight with the sword will die by the sword. And don't just think of this in terms of war. If we fight constantly to survive and come out on top and protect ourselves, that will be our ruin. That is how we will be undone. I'm yet to find somebody who has been living this lifestyle. They just come out at everybody. It's just this deep-seated bitterness. And I'm yet to meet one of those people that on their 100th person that they've burnt and hurt and wounded, they say, oh, thank God, finally, my last enemy. Nobody ever says that. In your worst moments, when you're bitter and angry at everyone, you don't trust anybody. It's like you're a hammer and everybody else around you is a nail. I mean, I'm telling you that if you swing long enough, like a hammer, everything and everyone becomes a nail. Survival is a thing. It's a curse to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves, to live a life that is not centered on love. So I come back again. If your friendships, relationships, family, romance, parenting, job, if there's a lot of tension in those places, ask yourself, who am I fighting for? I want to go further. Maybe not even just who do you fight for. What do you want to fight for? Me, myself, I feel that tendency to protect myself and survive. I do. But what I really want to fight for blessing. I really want us, Grace Church, to fight for miracles, to fight for love. When everybody else is just saying, I've been to church, I've been with Christians, I know how they are. And we know how they are, right? Don't look at anybody, right? But we know how we can be. We can turn selfish. We can turn distrusting. But I'll tell you this, and this is the part that really gets to my heart. Guys, if we can't get it right here, we will not get it right out there. I don't know if there's someone in the room right now that you do not like or something like that. Once again, do not look at anybody. Just keep looking right at me, right? If we cannot learn to love each other here, to let our walls down, it'll be near impossible for us to love out there. We've got to learn to love well here before we can love well out there. This is my final sales pitch on our Celebrate small groups. I mean, this is what the small groups are all about. This is the final time I'll make this joke that Stacy Dorenzo thought that Dan's name all 30 years has been Dave, okay? And then they were in a small group, and not only did they learn each other's real names, but they learned some of their deep, dark fears and greatest joys and aspirations and hopes. When you start really living life together, like in small groups, or as the church was always supposed to be, we start to learn it's not just one of us who needs to let down their walls and relent. We're doing it together. We're doing it together. We're learning how to forgive together. It's not just one person, right? Tracy going around and saying, hey, you're great, and everybody just like, shut up, Tracy, right? That's not what's happening. We're all trying to tell each other, hey, how are you? I care for you. What can I pray for you about? How are you doing? And if we're not doing that, we need to start asking ourselves, what are we fighting for? What do we exist for? A lot of times churches, I feel like, never get past a certain point because everyone's just trying to protect themselves, survive, not get hurt again. Here's the thing. If we're so afraid of getting hurt all the time, we're never going to let anybody in ever. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. You're alive. You're going to get hurt. The point is, though, are you going to get hurt and then put your walls up even higher, build even better fortifications to make sure you don't get hurt again? Or are you going to do the weird kingdom thing, which would say, oh, I've been hurt. God, how can we pivot this in the way to love well? When you get hurt or attacked, it's a real good test to say, well, who am I fighting for? Am I protecting myself, or am I fighting for love? It's this great reminder that was just at Matthew chapter 5. I want to put it back up there, that when these attacks come our way, when there's the test, right, to say, who do we fight for? What do we fight for? Well, we should count ourselves blessed, that all of heaven applauds, and we should know that we're in good company, right? Because the prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. Ashley, I want to invite you back up, and I think King of Kings would be perfect, and we don't have to put it up there yet, but the most wonderful thing about God, about Jesus, is this weird thing that if you are feeling so small compared to who he is and what he is, if you're feeling so humbled and somewhat fragile, I mean, I really do feel that sometimes. When I'm very close to God, I feel like, oh man, is this how it all kind of shatters? This full reliance on God, that I'm okay with whatever happens to me as long as love prevails. I also want to say this too. I love Ken started off his message with this last week, right? Saying that, and I'm this way too, right? Like I do at my core, I want to fight about everything. I want to argue, I want to debate, I want all these things. Scripture has a great track record of God taking those of you in the room who are fighters, warriors, and changing you into people who don't fight for themselves anymore, fight for the world, fight for whatever, but instead use that same intensity to fight for love. Final time, and it's not that clever. It's just the same question again. Who do you fight for? I want to invite you to stand as we wrap up. The question's simple. I bet some of you in this room have been in old battles, old disagreements, old wars for quite a while now. If I stop to think for even a moment, I mean, I can list on both my hands, I can count up all the different kind of things that I probably still need to resolve with an old friend, an old family member, an old thing that I refuse to let go of because I want to, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be called wrong. I don't want to be called anything but what makes me feel good. Church, we have to decide, are we going to be the people who are right or righteous? Are we going to be the people who survived, or are we going to be the people who relented and saw love flourish in supernatural ways? And we've got to also remember this, that blessing that comes with the meek and the humble and the open and the generous, that's not just for you. When you start to experience that loving miracle in your life, I mean, it infects everything, guys. It's a legacy kind of thing. I want that. I want to fight for love so that my wife will fight for love. And as Jude grows up, I mean, for a while, he's still going to probably be stealing toys and stuff and ticking off other little kids. But when he's aware enough, right, I want him to fight for love. I don't care what season you're in, how old you are, how young you are, whatever it is. It's never too late to decide, okay, what if I don't? What if I don't always just hold on to all of it? I don't have it up here today, but Jesus has a great line for the tired and the burdened. He says, come to me and I'll give you rest. Let go of what you were doing so you can grab hold of what I have in mind for you. Would you let go of old wars? Would you let go of old swords? Would you let go of whatever you're holding on to so you can grab hold of love? My final note is this: in just a few weeks we celebrate resurrection, and the problem is we can't be brought back to life if we refuse to die. We can't be welcomed in if we refuse to not move. As we get closer and closer to Easter Sunday, that's what I'm praying for our church. I'm praying for myself. I'm praying for my family, that on April 17th, I won't come in here and say, this is nice. But I'll come in April 17th and be reminded that Jesus gave everything so that I would give everything. Jesus opened himself completely so that we would open ourselves completely, fought and died for love so that we would do the same. Are you ready for resurrection when it comes? The better question is, who and what are you fighting for? Yourself or love? I'm going to have Ashley just sing through the chorus this a couple times and respond however you need to. Altars are always open. But I bet there is something that you need to tell God, I need to let go of this. Help me to let go of this. Help me to relent. Respond as you need to. Let's sing.